Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Health U, brought to you by Alaska Regional Hospital. We're here at Alaska Behavioral Health talking with Josh today about kids' mental health. And Josh, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, tell us a little bit about what you do here and your position.
Yeah, so I'm Joshua Arvidsson. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for Child and Family Services at Alaska Behavioral Health. And Alaska Behavioral Health is a comprehensive behavioral health organization. We're the largest provider of counseling services for children and adults in Alaska. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's nice to be with you today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and thanks for everybody at home for joining us. Now, there's been a ton of changes, obviously, in the last 18 months with this pandemic, kids being out of school, now going back to school. What are some of the things that you would suggest, or some of the tips and tricks, I guess, and some education you can give our listeners and viewers about kids' mental health and what they're going through right now?
Yeah. So I would say that anxiety is one of the most common challenges that kids experience. And I've been a therapist for about 20 years, and helping kids with anxiety is about half of what we do. And so it's really common. And school-related anxiety is one of the most common types of anxiety. And then on top of that, with what's happened with the pandemic for the last year and a half, with lots of disruptions in school, I've seen, and our clinic has seen, an increase in kids' anxiety related to school. So it's always a pertinent topic, but it's especially on track for today.
This is one of those subjects that are kind of abstract to people. Like, people don't really understand, I think, mental health, and that it's a real thing that's happening inside your body, just like an illness. Can you talk a little bit about how that works and how people can recognize it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because one of the things that we've discovered in mental health over the last 20 years, especially with brain imaging studies and other things, we can actually look at mental health, is that mental health is just like physical health. It's really driven in the body. Sometimes people used to say it's all in your head, and I say, well, yeah, it is, but it's physiologically in your head. It really is a real thing, just like depression is as real as a broken leg, for example. So I think it's helpful to start there, because not only does it kind of validate the experiences of people who are really struggling, but it's also important because it can give us some clues about how to help people and how to help people recover. So I'm going to show you a picture of the brain here, because that's where I like to start.
Yeah, let's get into the brain.
So this is a picture of the brain. It's a nice pencil drawing done actually by an artist here in Alaska. And so looking at this brain, the picture on one side there is the brain from the front, and then a brain from the side. And what a simple way of doing this yourself is you can take your hand like this, Seth, and just kind of tuck your thumb in your hand like that, and then roll your fingers around like that, and then look at it from this side. And it looks like a brain from the side, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like this.
Yeah.
So your thumb here is what's called the midbrain, and that's where your alarm system lives. And the human alarm system is really powerfully built into us. It's part of what enables us to respond powerfully to dangerous situations.
So that flight or fight syndrome.
Exactly. If you're, and then the cortex, this thinking part of the brain, this part of the brain that in human beings is really well developed and big, because we do a lot of complicated thinking. That's the cortex, and that's where you do long-term planning, decision-making, all those sorts of things. But if you imagine that you're standing fishing next to a river and a grizzly bear comes out of the bushes behind you, all that hey, what am I going to do with my life in the next month, and what am I making for dinner? All goes away. That alarm system activates. Actually, we call it flipping your lid. That alarm system activates, and it orients you to, I got to survive the situation right now. And like you said, fight, flight, freeze are like classic behavioral responses to that. So it's important to say that, because I know that may sound like an extreme example, like a grizzly bear charging you.
Yeah.
But when people are experiencing anxiety, what's happening is that alarm system is triggering, and it's telling you, hey, there's something I need to be worried about, something I need to be that's potentially dangerous. I'm going to show you another picture here.
So how does that relate to kids going back to school?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to show you just really quickly, under typical conditions, you may problem solve. You have a shortcut, like grizzly bear, got to seek safety. What we think happens when kids become really afraid of something and anxiety kind of gets built in or entrenched over time, you can see now that alarm system route can become like the predominant route. So they're just like, oh no, I'm in trouble, or there's danger. So what we have to do here, this is kind of my last roadmap slide, is we have to help turn that danger alarm system down.
Got it.
Once that alarm system is activated, you're kind of like fight, flight, freeze. So, there's a couple things we know about helping kids turn their alarm system down. The first thing is kids orient to the world and to safety through adults. and through safe caregivers and safe adults. So the most important advice that I could have for parents helping children who are anxious about school is you are the primary buffer for your child. You're the primary support for your child. And so how your
kids are feeding off their parents or caretakers.
Absolutely. And again, to go back to biology, not to get too on a side note here, but human beings are biologically vulnerable species. 2-year-old moose run around in the woods, no problems on their own. 2-year-old human beings, that's not going to happen. We really count on our caregivers for safety.
Absolutely.
So we also orient that way psychologically. We really we cue off of our caregivers. So the first thing I always encourage caregivers to do is listen, validate, and reassure. And I pair the listen and validate with the reassurance, because if you just listen but you don't reassure, it can sometimes feed like, oh yeah, this is something you should be worried about. So you want to listen and reassure. If you reassure like, oh, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, without the listening and validating part, kids can kind of feel like you're blowing them off, right? Yeah. So you want to pair those two things. Listen, validate your child's concerns or your youth's concerns, but then also reassure them, because you kind of loan them your confidence,
Yes.
So we can get through this. Then the next step is tune into the why. What is going on? Because there's a lot of potential drivers of school anxiety. What I see as a therapist is I see kids who have performance anxiety, so they're worried about like, I got to pass this test.
Make good grades.
Yeah, exactly. And they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And sometimes parents struggle with that because they're like, we don't want to lower the standard. We want our child to be successful. So I would say, keep your standard, lower the pressure.
Yeah.
Right? Like
advice.
we want to get good grades, but failing one test is not going to screw up the rest of your life.
No.
So lower the pressure, set realistic expectations. So that's if it's performance related anxiety, which is a big driver. A second one is social anxiety. So school's a complicated social environment.
You got bullies, you got people that pick on you, girls, boys, hormones.
It's a complicated social environment, and so sometimes kids are anxious about school because of that social environment. Now that's a tricky one to address, but asking again what's going on, reassuring them. But there's also steps you can take. Sometimes schools are pretty big, and sometimes kids do better in smaller groups. So clubs, sports, outside of school things, church youth groups, that kind of stuff.
Smaller groups.
Yeah, where you can help your child develop some relationships, so that when they go to school, then they have a person. They have a small group. Sports are good for this, all those kinds of things, because 1,600 kids is not really what we're socially set up to deal with when we're 14 years old, or or 400 kids when we're elementary school age.
That's overwhelming for anybody.
Yeah, so you can address the social pressures by doing some of those things. Inviting friends over, helping your child develop some relationships in smaller groups, one-on-one, etc. A third thing is attachment anxiety, and we definitely see this in young kids, and that's about like your child is attached to you. Most people experience this when their kid first goes to preschool or kindergarten.
Yep.
There's like that 1 out of 5 kids who just runs in the door, waves goodbye, and they're fine. But like most kids, it's a little bit hard
about it.
Yeah, because you're their person. So you want to bridge that gap. Find a person they can connect to at school. Find adults that they can then kind of transfer the security that they have with you into the school environment.
That makes a lot of sense.
And people think that's only true with little kids. Not true. It's true our whole lives. We're connected to our people. So think about that and explore with them, and work with your school around that. Is there someone they just check in with?
Yeah. I love that advice, by the way, because I just sent my daughter off to college. And we checked in with her roommate, met her roommate's parents, met the RA at the dormitory. So that's a great point, to really make sure you do it at every step of the way.
Absolutely. That's a perfect example. Yeah, and in some ways they're kind of carrying you with them.
Yeah.
So you connecting in those ways is really helpful. And then the last thing I would say is sometimes anxiety is just generalized. It's just someone's just anxious about a lot of things, and school becomes the thing they focus on.
Yeah.
And so when that's what's happening, when your child is just anxious across the board, we know some things about lowering anxiety. Exercise helps a lot. Good sleep, good food. I mean, those kind of general things we know. But they really do work for anxiety. Limiting screen time is helpful. Again, that helps with the social pieces too.
Screen time is a big one, yeah.
Lots of time outside, lots of time getting exercise and stuff. Actually kind of resets your physiological system and helps turn that alarm system down. So those are some of the kind of general things as far as
fantastic.
The why.
So getting your kid into sports or smaller groups situations where they feel like a part of something and attached to something. Screen time, I think that's huge for kids these days. I think they need to limit their screen time just in general, but it causes anxiety. It's proven. Like science shows it.
Yeah,
so
it does.
That's a great tip for our viewers out there.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So what else do we have to talk about?
I was just going to say, so you can. I kind of think we kind of talked about some of the things you can do around those four reasons why, and then I guess there's just some general things I would say is just try to always be kind and patient. And also, one thing to know, this is a little bit counterintuitive, so I think it's a good thing to know. When your child is anxious about something like school, you want to listen and validate and reassure them, but we also know that if you let them stay home for long periods of time, it can become like a bigger thing.
You're giving it to the anxiety.
Yeah, and it just kind of makes it bigger.
Reinforces.
Yeah, and it's not about a power struggle or whatever. It's about trying to support your student to get back in that environment, because the longer they're out of that environment, the harder reentry gets, and it sometimes can make the anxiety worse. So that's where, the art of parenting is complicated, because it's like, does your kid just need a break for a couple days? or if they stay home for 2 weeks, now, this school is this really big scary thing. Everyone's going to ask why I've been gone, and all this pressure comes with it. So you got to kind of balance it out.
I guess so. That leads me into my next question, which is, you see your kid experiencing anxiety. Obviously, you're going to implement some of these things: screen time, sports. But what can somebody do, and what kind of services do you guys offer that can help people in those situations?
Yeah, so I would say all these things can be helpful. I would say seek additional support or potentially professional counseling or therapy when these problems persist and they go on and on, when these problems inhibit your child's ability to live their life. So it's really getting to the point, like, they're not able to engage in school, they're not able to leave the house. It's really creating problems for them.
Sleepovers. Yeah.
And when in doubt, I do recommend, is just think of mental health the same way you think about primary care, other health care. If your kid's sick, you may try a couple things, but then you're like, hey, this has been 2 days, it's getting worse. Then you're going to take them to the doctor. That's how I think about mental health care. I think we should shift to, like, mental health care is just health care, and if kind of your tricks and things that that worked in the past as a parent aren't working, then just seek some assistance. Not a big deal. It's just like taking your kid to the doctor if they're not feeling well.
Absolutely. And if somebody wants to seek assistance, make an appointment with you guys, how can they get more information about what you guys do?
Yeah. So our website is really slick, and it kind of can walk you through how to become a patient here, akbh.org.
And we'll put that on the bottom of the caption.
And then you could also just call our clinic here for children's services. It's 561-0954 here at Anchorage.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head all of our phone numbers.
That's fine. Yeah,
but that'll get you there.
Yeah, we can get people to the website, I think, to get the help they need. I guess if there's any one last thing you could leave our viewers with, what would it be?
It's been being a parent is stressful, and it's been a stressful past year and a half. So take care of yourself, because healthy adults are what contribute to healthy kids. And so I just encourage parents to really take care of yourself. I like to say, when you get on the airplane, if you're traveling with a child, if the oxygen masks drop down, put on yours first.
Yeah.
Because you got to be okay to help someone.
A great analogy.
Yeah,
well, you heard it first here, guys, from the professionals. Take care of yourself first, and your kids will follow suit. So health starts at the top, and it's a trickle-down effect. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Again, if you guys stay tuned for the next segments, we'll have prizes we give away. And again, thanks to our sponsors and everybody involved. Thank you, Josh. And stay tuned for our next video. Thanks, guys.